this is the kickoff for this autumn's new learning series. And last time we spoke, we actually collected a bit of data that what you would like to learn and what should be the new year of Women Who Code. And the overwhelming, like the most popular topic has been data engineering. And that is what we are going to focus on. And this is the part 1, or basically the part 0 of the learning series. So you will get to also impact on how we will deliver this learning series for you. So as you notice, and just as a reminder for everybody, we are delivering this in English. Big part of our team is actually based in the Nordics. Some of us are native Finnish speakers. So for example, with me, you can ask questions in Finnish, in English, even in Swedish, I will answer in English. So don't worry. So that's okay. Content will be in English, so everybody will have access to the content. We will do recordings, and you will have a bit broader access than before for the learning environments. I will share on that today. So, hey, welcome. So my name is Ursula Koski. I'm your facilitator. I'm based in Finland. I'm part of the Amazon Web Services team here. I actually moved to Finland, and I'm now working as a part of the Finnish team. I've been in this industry for 28 years, and my career has been around data. Let's say the big part of majority of my career has been about data. But the data has been kind of reinventing itself and how we are utilizing it. And I will talk about that a bit, and also my experience on that. Other than being technical, there are lots of things that I love. I live in the archipelago. I haven't found a book that I don't like, so I'm a bookworm. I love to travel. And yeah, so hey, I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors. So shout out to Amazon Global. Amazon is a LGBTQ+ community inside Amazon and AWS, and also our global ID&E leaders, and of course, Team Finland. Thank you. Thank you for your support. This wouldn't be happening without you. So let's start with a round of questions of what this is, what we are planning, and how can you impact what we are doing. So usually it's a good idea to ask, why are we here? So let's check some things. So why are we here and where are we going to? So I know everybody has different goals. You might be searching for your first role. You might be doing career transformation. You might want to just learn a new technical area. So think about the reason why you are here. What do you want to learn? And also remember, we can impact still how we're going to deliver this. So we are actually looking at the upcoming 12 months, and we are going to also adjust based on the feedback that you get to give us. So that's cool. So as said, this can be the beginning of a completely new career, or you might be doing career transformation, or even thinking about what do you want to do as a career. One thing to keep in mind is that when we ask the question, who are we? So we are quite diverse. So looking at the age range, we have young people, young as 16. We have people who have done a long career. So remember, everybody has a different starting point. So don't do too much comparison of if somebody knows a lot about something already. So the idea is to provide the content to everybody. You might have to do a bit of self-study if you are a beginner, but we will also provide the tools to do so. And then the question, where are we going to? And what is data engineering? I will cover a bit about data engineering and data as such, just like an overview, a brief overview, and why is it important. And I know many of you who have been a part of the cloud practitioner certification path in the past know that we are also aiming for certifications. And that might be one of the aims. So we will be actually covering also a certification exam of data engineering associate. So you will get the opportunity to actually do that certification exam. We will support your exam vouchers. but that doesn't necessarily have to be your goal. The goal can be just to learn, and you can actually participate in only parts of this learning series if you want to do so. So, like mentioned, certification can be one goal, not mandatory at all. For many, certification means that it might mean that it's an easier path to find a role when you can prove that you already know this content area. It's not a guarantee of a job role, but it makes it easier. For those of you who have done cloud practitioner, this is what the data engineering path could look like. So cloud practitioner is a good starting point. It's not mandatory. So you don't necessarily have to have the cloud practitioner if you have the needed skills and knowledge already. So the path can go through having a solution architect, but we will actually focus on data engineer. Why? Because it's quite a vast area. And second why is that there's a huge demand happening right now for the data engineering roles. If you just look at the certification area, the certification area is basically 4 domains. So 4 domains covering certain things. So let's look at it a bit. So domains such as data ingestion and transformation. So how do you actually take in data, transform the data into different formats? And then how do you store that data securely? And then domain 3 is data operations and support. And then one of the last areas, but I would say one of the most critical ones, is data security and governance. So those are the 4 domain areas. And one might think it's only 4 domains. Trust me, it's quite a vast area. So actually, if you're a beginner, this path could take you 12 months to get to the certification if you really want to properly understand the whole exam area. If you just want to take one area, let's say the data store management, you could just participate in that part of the path. We will mark all the sessions so that you know in which path areas they are for. So you will see the domain mark in front of every area. So don't worry, it's easy to spot which one is which. We'll do something else also than just do technical learning, because it's good idea to also have a bit of fun doing it. So I will share on that a bit later today. And keep in mind, our starting points are different, and also not everybody's journey looks the same. So don't compare too much. So think about it also in ways that, can you enjoy this? Is this something that you really enjoy doing? For me, this has been my passion. So data has been my passion whole my career. Life is easier that way. So if you really enjoy doing what you do, that is critical, because it's very easy to go to work and enjoy your role, enjoy your job. So you can also use this to estimate if you like this or not. Is this interesting for you? Does this inspire something in you? Cool. That being said, let's talk about data a bit and data engineering. So I was thinking that I will go through a really short journey of data and also look at the situation that we are in right now. So if you look at 2024 and maybe upcoming 5 years. So data engineering job market in the upcoming 5 years, there's a vast number of roles. There's so many. If you put in Google and say, what are the most sought after roles in data engineering, you will get at least 8 answers. So that's a lot. And why is that? The fact is that the topic area is huge. So there is an increasing demand and importance of data driving business decisions. And of course, the fact that we are generating more data than ever before. So you also see that organizations across different industries are adopting AI, Gen AI, machine learning, big data analytics, and they want to understand how to have a robust data infra, but also manage the cost of that infra. So as a data engineer, you will be essential for handling that growing complexity, and also how do you manage security, governance, and such. So it's basically a business need that is also a technical need. I would actually go out and say data quality is everything when it relates to AI, ML, generative AI. If you have great quality data, you have great quality decision making. The same goes if you have a garbage going in, guess what you are getting out. So then you have garbage going out. So then you won't have those quality decisions coming out of the system. So that's something as data engineers that we can impact and improve. So let's dive into the history of data. We talked about the need for data engineers, and then we'll look at the path, what this path looks like. And then I will have a questionnaire for you. So if you're watching this on video after the event, don't worry, you will have a QR code that you can actually scan with your phone, and then you can give the feedback. But please give feedback because that helps us to plan when and how we are doing these sessions. We actually have quite a large team in Finland, so I'm actually aiming to keep most of the delivery with the local organization. But I would also love to hear like how hands-on, what time of the day, and how often would you like to have these? So keeping in mind, do you also want to do self-study, but is it easier also to do these interactive sessions where you also get to ask questions? So those help us guide the delivery for our organization. So let's kick off with a quote. This is a quote you gotta love. Jim Barksdale has been actually retired for quite a while already. He's the previous CEO of Netscape. He's the previous CEO of AOL. And he has this famous quote about data. If we have data, let's look at the data, meaning let's make business decisions based on data. If all that we have are opinions, let's go with mine. Gotta love that. So I think we all know that we need data to make those quality business decisions. Data is actually the building blocks. So if you look at the data has been around for, it's not only decades, it's hundreds and thousands of years. We just have had different ways of gathering that data, keeping that collection of data in bay. So we have data, we have information, and then we actually should have for the business insights. But the challenge is that if we don't have structure, if we don't have tools, if we don't have processes, that data has very little value. So you might collect all the data, but if you can't access it for that information and insights, it's completely useless. And if you look at the history of the data, kind of the brief history of the data, and if we just keep on focusing the technical side of data collection, if we still talk about the modern data collection, we can start with very simple, very simplistic approach. So what has it been in the past? So in the past, it has been having even those physical medias, having those archives, paper storage. But it's a lot of manual work to get to that data and get to those decision-making processes if you actually have to use that data for that decision-making process. So in the past, you have had your punch cards, your magnetic storage medias, your paper archives, you name it, we have had it. But the thing is, it has been quite simple and the amount of data has been quite low. So actually, to get to those insights, it has been kind of query of that raw data. So cool, we have been able to do that. What has changed is the fact that once we add a lot more velocity and a lot more content in that area, so once we went from megabytes to gigabytes and from gigabytes to petabytes and terabytes, we have started to get millions of rows of data. And still having a very simple approach to data, you might have had just your SQL access, And your insights are basically looking at, of course, quality of the data that we have collected, the complexity of the data, and of course, what impacts your insights is the performance that you can collect the insights with. So let's say that you have those millions of rows of data. How quickly can you get to those number of rows that you need to make a quality insight from that data? So drive a business decision from that data. And of course, one thing to keep in mind, cost has been an impact in the past when you talk about collecting a vast number of data for the organization. So you're storing data, but are you using it? So let's look at the side of business and data. So the fact is that everybody's business is accelerating. We are faster than ever. We produce so much data. So the amount of data is growing, and we have something called additional personas. So people who are using the data to make those business decisions. So understanding what we are aiming to do, why we are doing it, why is it critical for the business? And those additional personas need to access that ever-growing amount of data and do it faster than ever. So it also has to be right time to have that access. You might have the data, but if you can't access it, again, it's useless. So the fact is, given this scenario, it's not so simple anymore. So the landscape is growing. So going from those magnetic medias or punch cards, going to more advanced technologies, adding more things to the landscape, it started growing. And we have had repositories, databases, relational databases, and it has grown, and it has grown. And we have gotten to a point that once it's not so simple anymore, the insight scorecard of our scale, our quality of data, our complexity, our performance, and our cost and maintainability might have hit a tipping point of being basically burning. So what does it mean for business if you have a too complex landscape and you have those cost issues, performance issues, maintainability issues? It means that most likely your customers will be impacted. So your customers have an impact of the fact that you can't make those quality decisions at the right time that you need to make them. So this is kind of the fundamental level of why we are here and why we are looking at the data engineering learning path. Like I mentioned, there are roles and roles and roles. So you might be focusing on, let's say, the performance of the data. That has been a big part of my career, of how do you deliver that data with a great performance globally, with a very low threshold of also doing different kinds of insights, collecting data, and delivering those in time for the business to make their decisions with. But the fact is, the pace that we are growing, if we have a very complex landscape, we need to start rethinking things. So let's step back from the architecture itself and let's look at the pile of raw data. So our raw data these days, most likely, is not just those rows, not something that you might have had printed on paper in your archives. It is videos, it is audio, it is multitude of things. So it can be structured or unstructured. So if you look at the traditional way, so for example, a big part of my career has been about, we'll take the raw data, we want to get to those insights, and we put something in between. What that something has been, it has been typically, how do you extract the data? How do you move the data? How do you transform the data? So basically, if I want to reorganize it, I want to denormalize it or normalize it. I want to load it to another system to get to those insights. That's a very traditional way of looking at it. So like a classic scenario of data analytics architecture that has been around for a couple of decades already is that we'll put in place something like this. So we have data sources, as we still do have a lot of data sources. And then we have those processes of extract, transform, and load. And then we most likely will have data warehouses at the end. And most likely our scorecard has looked like something like this. So we can handle terabytes and even petabytes of data. We can have billions of rows of data. It still is kind of you have that SQL language access, but you can do scale, you can do better quality. By the way, the quality is not automatic. It actually does require a lot of planning. So that is an art form on its own. We do have complexity. We even have global environments. But we can do that with a quite good performance and also the cost point. Let's look at our history. So talking from a point of view of Amazon Web Services, the fact that this has been the classic data analytics architecture, I'll just take one product as an example. Keep in mind, this is not the only product that we will be talking about, but just as an example of what our progress in this area has looked like. Then I put a couple of years on the timeline so you get an idea of on which timeline this has been happening. So for us, we have something called Amazon Redshift. So it's a cloud data warehousing solution. So the starting point has been something like you have that connectivity, you have your JDBC, ODBC connectivity, you have your Redshift, maybe even a cluster database. And let's look at the timeline. So in 2013, it started off with just the basic functionalities. It has been evolving ever since. So going from, for example, different kind of node types and also different kind of data store types. As you remember, it's a big part of data engineering role. How do you store it? How do you archive it? How do you manage cost? And then going 2019, separating storage from front end, so basically the processing nodes, making it scale separately so that we can actually scale separately the storage side and the front end side. So going to more microservices level processing type. And 2020, adding concurrency scaling to allow more performant, more scalable architecture. 2021, we started doing data sharing clusters, kind of getting to a more global, more robust way of processing data warehouses. And yeah, what it basically means is that we have taken something that is very classical, so data warehousing, put it on cloud, make it cloud-based, make it scale on different levels like storage, front-end such, and also allowed to share that resource based on the principles that we do, as you know. So how do you do per second billing for those services that our customers use so that you don't have to commit to the upcoming years, you can actually buy that service based on per second billing. So the thing is, it's not only about data warehousing. So let's be honest, because we are here to talk about data engineering. So if it would be just about data warehousing, let's be realistic, we would be actually kicking off a learning path of data warehousing, let's say administrators, DPAs. This is so much more, and this is what it makes also the whole thing very exciting. So the fact is, it is about the data storage, it's about archival, it's about cost, but it's also about AI, generative AI, machine learning. How do you do free search text like custom searches? How do you do complex transformations? And how do you do flexible compute options and impact also the overall pricing of your infrastructure? So complex data models, deep learning, also semi-structured data. So not necessarily always structured data as your traditional classic data warehousing or even OLTP environments, but semi-structured. How do we actually allow those different formats of data being used? So this is what makes it also complex. And our aim is to actually include a lot of this in the learning path, of course, on the level that it covers the actual certification area. So you get your certification if you want to aim to the certification, but also that you get practical things that you can do and manage at work, and you can learn and think about what you can create with cloud infras. So a couple of things before we jump into what the program actually looks like is that we need to talk about modern data strategy. So what does it look like for your enterprises and big enterprises these days? It's most likely not focusing so much on individual products like data warehousing and which flavor of data warehousing you're using. So keep in mind, anything that we talk about with products is, of course, in our learning path is AWS, but the basic principles are pretty much the same regardless of which brand or flavor of environments you're using. So what does modern data strategy look like? So most likely what many of the customers that we are seeing these days are aiming to get to scalable data lakes. So what does a data lake mean is that it's a centralized repository that allows you to store all your structured and unstructured data at any scale. So that at any scale is quite interesting because keeping in mind the boom of the data, the growth spurt of the data, it was easy way back when we were talking about maybe some gigabytes of data. Along my career, there has been a term around when you talk about databases that we use a term when you have a large database, or let's say extreme level size databases is a very large database. That term has changed drastically over years. So I've seen a season when a very large database was a terabyte database, or it was even like a couple of hundreds of gigabytes. Now, the scale can be petabyte level. So that means that any scale can be humongous. But that any scale also means if you have a humongous number of data, it's even more difficult to do that well, to get those insights at the correct times from that data. So how do you create that ecosystem and cost effectiveness? And that is in the heart and center of being a data engineer. So you need to understand how to do that at pace and also providing support for the business. So if you look at what consists and what has data lakes become these days is that they typically hold things like purpose-built data services. It's not about just having your traditional databases like relational databases. They can be your NoSQL databases. They can be your ledger databases. They can be your graph databases. So there's so many different options there. So we talk about purpose-built data services on purpose that you need to understand what serves the data collection and the amount of data you have in the best way possible. So this includes things like big data processing. You have your operational like OLTP databases. They can be relational or non-relational. You have your AI and ML services. You have your data warehousing solutions like your classical analytical side. But you have things like, let's say, security data, like how do you do log analytics and also BI and visualization of that data to get that data to your business decision makers. And of course, how to be that performant and cost effective, and definitely unified governance. What does unified governance, and we will talk about this in the upcoming series, mean? The fact is that it's very typical for businesses to look at different security and governance solutions based on the service that they are on. So it becomes in ways very granular, and you have different services for different purposes. Looking at a modern data lake, you should have the same rules, the same security settings going through the whole data infrastructure so that it cannot be detached from that. And that is a challenge that we will definitely talk about in part of this series that we are now launching. Business justification-wise, This is just a fact. Data-driven organizations that we have, big or small, are actually growing faster than those that are not very good with data. So on average, data-driven organizations are growing at a rate of 30%. And that is actually a big, huge benefit of having great quality data and those insights from that data. There are some challenges, and we do hear certain talking points a lot from our customers. So let's look at those talking points and also the fact why the customers are recruiting modern data engineers, and also why they are looking at the fact that does those data engineers, do they have the understanding of cloud data collection, security and governance, and things like how to do performant global infras. So there are questions like they have difficulty finding data across multiple accounts, environments, on-prem, etc., regions. So it's not only about cloud, it's also about what they have in the on-premise environments. Also, one of the key things still is the fact that delayed access to data. So even if we know that we have the data, but if we can't access it at the correct time, it renders the data useless. Then there's the fact that there are technical barriers limiting access to tools. Technical barriers meaning that there's not enough skill set in the market to actually handle this whole landscape. And also, it's not a single environment. So let's be honest, it's never a single environment. So the thing is, it can be created in ways that it looks like a single environment, even though the underlying infra is quite complex, or there's quite a lot of content in there and a lot of tools. And that is a part that we will be talking about when we talk about creating enterprise-wide data lakes. So how do you get your users, your business decision makers, to be able to access that data, access those analytics without caring about, is it stored in which data warehouse? How do you do that unified approach? So kind of streamline that approach. And also data governance. And talking about data governance and security, that should be a layer that always exists. It should be going across the stack, but it shouldn't be in your face if you kind of look at the environment in such that that should be streamlined. It should be transparent. So if I'm a business decision maker, I should have access to data that I need to make my business be as effective as possible. But I should also be limited from seeing, let's say, another line organization's data if I shouldn't be seeing that. So that data governance and those security models should be built in, but shouldn't be the problem of that business decision maker. They should be streamlined. So in essence, if you look at those enterprise questions that we see and what we get, is that what scalable modern data architecture should consist of, regardless of the underlying products, is that it should be basically created to scale and remove bottlenecks from accessing those business decisions. So we talk about democratizing data for decision makers, for the business owners to access it. Of course, you can kind of put a versus in there and say, what about security? Of course, you first have to start with security. Who can access what? How can we also audit the fact who has accessed what? How do we do it securely? How do we do it transparently without blocking those decision makers from the business? So we are going to, in essence, talk about all these areas during the learning path. So the summary is, on a summary level, so the data journey and the data growth is still happening. So is very much growing at the moment. We do have to start focusing on purpose built for performance and cost, because we can't be piling on cost for business, because that will not be eventually scalable. So these have to be in balance. We have talked about microservices. So those of you who have been part of the cloud practitioner, the serverless side and the serverless approach will be a huge part of this journey too. So how do you create microservices? How do you create transparent services? How do you attach, for example, the user interface or the computing power or the front end from the actual storage of the data? How do you make them scale? How do you actually make sure that you have all your storage devices and services being used set up so that they also fulfill the business criteria of what about if there's something happening in a very limited geographical area? So are there availability challenges? Are there resiliency challenges? So understanding how do you create that maximum availability also for the data, even keeping it in balance with cost. So when you democratize the data access, it also generates much more innovation in the organization. So once you see what you can do with that, you can even innovate more. So in a very compact format, this is the area that we are talking about. There will be a lot of tools, and I will share a bit of data with you, and then I will ask for your help because it allows us to also streamline how we deliver this and what kinds of teams we will have for you in the upcoming sessions. So our learning path will be consisting of technology sessions. So that means webinars, and we will be recording all the webinars. So that means that if you can't be a part of the webinar, let's say from 10 until 12 on Thursdays, that's not a problem. You can actually access all and everything by yourself, just looking at the webinar recording. We have something called immersion days, and those of you who have done the practitioner know that immersion days are hands-on sessions. And we have had feedback, and also feel free to kind of elaborate on that feedback now that I will give you a form. Many of you say that the amount of time the immersion day environment is available is too short. And I have been talking about the option to actually expand that. Let me see how much I can expand that. But let's say we have had the environment, so we kick off a session in the morning, and then the environment is available for 12 hours. So people who can join in the morning can still do the hands-on practices in the evening. If I can extend that to have a bit more time, that probably would make it easier, but happy to hear some feedback on that also in the feedback form. We'll be talking about career, and I think that's one of the areas that we still need to do a bit of sparring in, but also let's say that this is an area that you would like to work in, be a data engineer, you would like to focus on a specific area. How do you do that career planning? And we are setting up sessions also for the virtual event in November for you to have access to also our recruitment, also our partner recruitment, to talk to what kinds of skills are needed, what's the expectation of start level. But that's also an area that we could probably evolve a bit better to do more in that area. One of the feedbacks, if you feel so, could be that we can just do like career sessions also as a webinar format. There will be certification days and certification prep days. So certification prep day means that we will be covering one full exam as a webinar recording. So you will get to see what kinds of questions are being asked. So we will help you prep. And of course, we will have, at the same time as the virtual event, we will have a watch party. So mark that in your calendars. It will be at Mikonkatu 7 at Amazon Web Services. So we will have a huge team there to talk to you, and that will be fun. So looking at data that we have had in the past, so keep in mind the community is quite large. So there's 11,000 members and still growing. The program itself, even though we are driving it as Amazon Web Services, you will here and there see AWS and Mimmit Koodaa partners, customers, to talk about also the job opportunities. There is an active Slack. So if you're not part of that Slack, we can drop that in the chat. have you invited in that Slack environment. Looking at the last rolling 12 months, we have done 400 net new certifications. So that's quite cool. We also have an LGBTQ plus community, and being member of that community, it's very cool to see that we have such an active community also in this area. We have been looking into mentoring opportunities. The shape and format, how we will do that, is something that is kind of in turmoil. So we need to also focus on how to do that at scale. It's still quite okay to do one-on-ones, but is there some ways of doing peer mentoring? Is there possibilities to match mentor-mentee inside the group? That's something that is still evolving. So that all being said, I will ask for your help in order to plan this series a bit better. And that ask for help is on this slide. So there's both a link and there's also a QR code that you can scan with your phone. And there are a couple of things that we are asking then. And keep in mind, this will be open also after this event, so after this live event. So you can answer this in the upcoming 2 weeks if you're looking at this as a recording. So there are questions of pace of delivery. So how often would you like to see both webinars and immersion days? How much would you like to do also as a self-study if we provide you with ready-made recordings? Because let's be honest, we have created so much content, and I know that the starting level is not the same for everybody. So let's say we can give you already ready-made recordings and say, hey, if you're lacking one area, you can watch these to catch up. We will ask you a question in that form of your start level. So it goes from being a beginner that you haven't actually been studying data engineering at all, to going to a pro level that you're already working in a role of data engineer. Why are we asking this? So it allows us to much more easier plan how we are going to deliver this. If you are a pro and if you're actually here to just get to your certification, if there's a whole lot of you out there, we can do a very quick accelerated path. And that means that we will deliver a prep session for you to get to the certification. But that means that there has to be more than a few that would like to see that. Also, a couple of questions on that we would like to hear your comments on: certification versus learning by doing. What's your expectation, and any support that you need? So there's also a custom field that we will ask for anything that you want to share with us, anything that would make your life easier. So there will be one source of truth that will be the main landing page. So the main landing page will look something similar as the Cloud Practitioner in the springtime. So it will have all the events, dates, possibility to enroll. So the format will stay the same. The link of the landing page will stay the same. Tools that we will be using. So tools for the series is basically, we'll be using Zoom, Slack. We might be doing, if we do bigger exercises like data sharing exercises, we might use something called Amazon Work Docs, or if we are doing it via the platform of the landing page, that might be that it's not necessarily Work Docs, but we'll see how we do that. We'll be providing certification vouchers. And regarding certification vouchers, I know some of you are still waiting to get your certification vouchers for the practitioner. We have set up a call. So basically the blocker is me at the moment. So I'm sorry, it has been my calendar. So in order to have access to those codes, we will be doing like a big batch delivery for you. And we will have a meeting on that on Friday. So hopefully that means that in a couple of days, we are able to clear the whole thing that you should have access to your voucher. We will be using the same voucher platform also during this data engineering path. So it will be something called X voucher. One thing to keep in mind, when you are requesting a voucher, vouchers are accessible for 12 months onwards. They will expire and you can't actually make them run longer than 12 months. So kind of look at the timeline you want to do your certification in. There will be a main page, so that one source of truth. There will be different social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, and such. So that basically is a summary level. So where is the main page? So the main page link is the traditional one. So you have your Mimmit Koodaa and also the Amazon main page. These are the things that we now have in our pipeline. So we are now looking at the kickoff. We will talk about both purpose-built databases and data services. We'll talk about data lakes, data modeling. We will have the watch party coming up in November, and then we'll go into much more deeper topics. And there will be more, because you know that this area is growing right now because of the boom of the Gen AI, and ML. So also, if you see that you would be interested in focusing on more on the AI and ML side, we are happy to hear that. I have had a lot of questions about also recertification. So does the certification, once I acquire it, expire? Yes, they do. So recertification happens every 3 years. So recertification is done for the practitioner. You can just recertify at the moment doing like a gamified method of one of our platforms. So you don't necessarily have to do the test, or you can do a recertification exam. Then, of course, then you have your associate level. So the data engineer will be the associate level certification, and you will have your professional level and specialty level. So if you are already certified, you will always get a 50% discount voucher. And once we see people start actually expiring their certs, we can, of course, do like retake days and figure out how to do that. But that's not necessarily a concern right now. So, hey, that brings us to the end. So I will open up for questions. So we will have a lot of fun also together. And please remember to leave us feedback. And I want to say thank you. Feel free to connect with me if you're not connected on LinkedIn. Happy to always connect. And all our speakers and facilitators love to connect with you. Also share feedback if you feel so on LinkedIn. And yeah, let's go create a great learning path. So, hey, I will open up for questions. So anything that we might have in the chat. So let's see if Sanna is there. Do we have questions?
Yes, we have a lot of questions right now. So this is a good situation. First one, do you need to have cloud practitioner certificate to get data engineer certificate?
So that's actually a great question. So very short answer, you don't technically have to have the practitioner cert. So that, what does it mean that technically you don't have to have it? You can actually book your exam to go just do the data engineer associate without having the practitioner done before. So if you're already experienced, you're working in a role, you know, you can participate, you don't have to do the practitioner. If you're a beginner, the practitioner path helps you a lot in order to understand the more advanced topics. And one thing, everything is on YouTube that we have done in the past. So there's multiple iterations of the cloud practitioner. You can always also go through those. And if we see, and this is something to just also do like mental note for ourselves, if we see that there are a lot of people who would like to do that, do kind of an accelerated path to practitioner, we can figure out if we want to add like a practitioner exam prep somewhere. But that's something that we would love to hear. If you want to do that, if you want to get an accelerated path to practitioner, let's figure out how to do that. But it's not a mandatory thing to have the data engineering cert. Anything else that we have in the questions?
Yes. Okay. Someone asks, could you please tell me more about curriculum and timeline for obtaining the certificate?
Yeah, so actually, I can actually come back to the slide that, as you saw, that we have a lot of content there. So there will be a lot of content, both technical in ways that it's a webinar. So technical webinar where we talk about the concepts. We have people who have been doing these topics for a living. So most likely you will see a lot of Amazon Web Services, senior SAs, solution architects talking about these topics. And then we have hands-on, which are the immersion days. So originally when we were planning this, we actually put in a very tight schedule. And then we realized that, hang on, life happens also in the meanwhile. And that is the reason we are asking from you, what is the timeline that you can commit to? So if we want to do a really proper hands-on on everything, most likely we will be running at least up until March. So that means that March would be the timeline, even if we don't add anything. But the thing is, we might need to add certain things to get everybody on pace and get everybody also succeeding in the exam. And so this survey, just showing it again, is the one that you can also have an impact in. So give us a bit of data. How fast, how slow would you like to take it? What is the type of delivery you would like to see? So if you would like to have more hands-on, so the practicing in the immersion days, if you want to have a lot more in the webinar format of having recorded webinars, let us know. That helps us a lot. So there's also a question of how often can you participate? So is it once a month, couple of times a month? Would you like to do more self-study, kind of accelerated path? And then we have all the sessions already outlined. We have all the agenda, so we can share those in the calendars for you. All right. Anything else that we have open in the chat?
All right. Are these all free?
So yeah, so that's also a great question. All the education that we are doing, so regardless if it's a webinar, if it's an immersion day, yes, it's free. There's also a side note that I want to make. So this is sponsored by Amazon Web Services and our Amazon community. So it doesn't mean that we are not spending money on that. It means that we are covering the expense. And as you know, Mimmit Koodaa is facilitating the platform of Zoom, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. So kind of, is it free? It's free for you to participate. We will also provide you with the exam voucher. And the exam vouchers will be free, but there are things that we will ask from you. One of the things is that please use the exam voucher because it is money. So those exam vouchers for associate level certs is, if I remember it correctly, they are 167 euros a piece. So that's quite a lot of money. So please take the exam. Also, please tell us if you passed or not. We have the retake opportunity for those of you that, let's say that you wouldn't pass for some reason. If you report to us and share us what are the challenges, we can seek out to have kind of recertification voucher for you. So it helps us with data if you report, and also it helps you with the retake opportunity. So all in all, it's very useful for us. So it means that we have data also from the learning series. All right, anything else?
Yes. Will we have internship or real projects during the track?
That's actually a good idea. We have been doing with different training programs, we have been doing like a internship exercises, and that is maybe one way that we could facilitate the immersion days. I haven't actually thought about it that way. We have also had companies that do want to provide those internship possibilities of, hey, do you want to learn about us? Do you want to do like a practice? It's not an exam, but a project. That's actually really valuable feedback. And like mentioned, I haven't thought about it also in this context. Let me make a mental note and figure out if it would be doable, because usually it means that you have to have, let's say, AWS partner, AWS customer who would facilitate those practices. And that, of course, in the process might facilitate the option to actually find a job role. So usually we have been using those for programs that are aiming to get to your role quite quickly. But let me make a note of that, and I will figure out what we can do.
Thank you. Now I have changed in Finnish.
Yep.
Onko tämä opintopolku AWS:n kautta? Koska työllisyyspalvelut rajoittaa opiskelua työttömyystuella, tämä olisi tärkeää tietää, mitä kautta se suoritetaan.
Okay, hyvä kysymys. So there was a question, I can answer it both Finnish and English. So there was a question about if you are having an unemployment benefit, is this seen like an official study path in the eyes of the employment agencies? Now I have to say I don't know that very well. My assumption is because we are not an official university. This is not an internship as such. This is free education. I would say that there shouldn't be a risk. But Sanna, Milja, could we take a note and figure out if there could be a risk in there? Eli kerro vielä suomeksi. Eli voisiko olla riski niin kuin työttömyysturvan kannalta? Mä en näe, että olisi, mutta otetaan tuosta, selvitetään, että niin ei ole, koska se on ehdottomasti jotain, mitä ei haluttaisi. Mä olettaisin, jos opintopisteitä kertyisi, niin sitten voisi olla riski, tai tästä kerättäisiin erikseen opintopisteitä, mutta tarkistetaan, jotta ollaan viisampia.
Yes. And the next one is also in Finnish. Onko tämän kurssin suoritettua mahdollista työllistyä tai hakeutua alan töihin?
All right, so the question is, and I will also do Finnish and English. So is it possible to get a job role based on the certification and the course content? So I would say this is very specifically in the area of data engineering, and there's a lot of roles at the moment. So with us, there's a lot of roles, with our partners, with our customers. So in that case, I would say yes. Is it an automation to get your new role? No certification will do that. Eli suomeksi vielä se, että on sertifiointi, auttaa tosi paljon rekryssä. Meillä on tosi paljon data engineer-positioita auki, niin meillä kuin meidän asiakkailla kuin meidän kumppaneilla. Onko se automaatio aina saada työpaikka sitten, jos on sertifikaatti? Ei, toki mikään sertifikaatti niin kuin maailmassa ei takaa sitä. Mutta esimerkiksi itse rekrytointia tekevänä mua helpottaa tosi paljon, jos mulla on 500 hakemusta pöydällä, mä haen vaikka siihen data engineering rooliin, ja mä näen, että vaikka 20 niistä 500 on jo sertifikaatti, mä tiedän, että heillä on perusosaaminen, niin se helpottaa.
All right. Next one. So, is this study path studying on our own, but with an AWS voucher?
Sorry, so is it study path learning on our own or?
But with an, I don't really know what that does mean. So, there is events when you can join, and AWS team will teach you how to do it, and you are not on your own.
No. Yeah. So that's true. So typically what we do on all our learning series, you will have always team members, not necessarily me always, but one of our team members of architects accessible. We do a lot of theory also in the beginning to talk about different topic areas. So it will be this kind of, we have a slide and then we'll talk about a topic, you get to ask questions. Then we will do hands-on and they are also guided. If you can't participate in those, let's say that you're in school, you're doing your job role, and that timing doesn't work, then you can look at the recording. And one thing that we can do, we can share a bit extra recording. So that way it could be also a bit of self-study, but there will be a lot of live things. And then there will be actual live things like the watch party in November that you get to also meet our teams live and ask questions from them. I will also aim for the thing that we will have recruitment available there. So you can also talk to the recruitment of AWS.
Yes.
Anything else?
Can anyone else still register for the course? Not yet.
Yeah, so everything is open for registration. What I know from the past is that immersion days, because they have a attendee limit, tend to get full. And this is one thing why I'm mentioning this. If you, for some reason, register, can't join an immersion day, please remember to cancel, because we have a maximum limit. And let's say if you can't join, it might mean that there's a lot of people on the waiting list. And if you don't free up the space, then of course, then it will not be used. So be mindful that you cancel if you have registered and cannot join. Webinars as such, you can always take a link and watch it after, so it's not a problem. You don't necessarily have to cancel your participation, because I don't think we have kind of a realistic maximum limit for the webinars, but the immersion day is a bit more trickier. All right, anything else?
Next one, are there any vouchers for the AWS Cloud Practitioner?
Yeah, there will be. So we will be going through this week the people who have submitted for the vouchers, and you will get an email regarding this. So we are sorry about the delay. We will be going through this. Also follow the Slack. We can ping you in the Slack channel to say once they are processed. So if for some reason you don't see a voucher, then once we have processed all the requests, ping us, let us know. Also check that it doesn't go into like your email filter or something. That's being seen sometimes, because also the X-Voucher platform sends you like an automatic email saying, hey, we have allocated the voucher for you. We will be using the email address you have given us. So keep that in mind. So the email address you have given us in the form, that's the one that will be receiving the voucher code, so the voucher email.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback that some people want to join Cloud Practitioner path.
Okay.
Um,
Can you, so basically maybe in that case, if there's a lot of you that would like to start off with the practitioner path, could you take the time and do that feedback form? Even you can do it even twice if needed, but if there's a lot of you out there that say, I'm not ready for the data engineering path, I would like to actually go through with the cloud practitioner first. Let us know. And that is actually one of the reasons we are here today, that we are offering something that is usable for you. If there's not too many of you, what we can do, we can put together a watch list for you, and then we'll figure out how to do the hands-on practices. We can do another exam prep. That's not a problem. We also have recorded our exam preps. We have a few of them already. So definitely, if there's enough people, if there's enough interest, I think, yes, we can do that. So Sanna, Milja, let's figure that out once we see the feedback.
yes. Next one, can I join this study while I am doing an internship at another place?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's not a problem. You can participate. You also, those of you, if there are any questions around, can I take part in just, let's say, data ingestion or something? Yes, you can. So very short answer, yes, you can. You can take part of it. You don't have to necessarily do a certification. You can do it so that it supports your new role, your internship and such. So don't worry. Yeah, that's an option.
Yes. And the other ones are related to Slack community and how to register. And we will send you infos via email, so you will get to know those.
Cool. So you get to join, register to Slack, and it has been a very good community. So yeah, please use it.
Yes, and you also get the recordings via email, so no worries about that. And you can always send us an email and ask questions, please send those at info@mimmitkoodaa.fi. So we will help you.
All right, cool. It seems, did we get through all the questions?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. Hey, thank you everybody so much for participation. We will go through the feedback. You will get emails from us like you heard from Sanna. And hey, thank you for your time. And we will publish the calendar very soon. And we will see you in the next one.